In May of 2016, the residents of one of the most expensive condo buildings in San Francisco received a letter. The letter informed them that the building they lived in, the building they had paid up to $10 million to live in, was sinking into the ground. It was also tilting. By the time the letter arrived, the Millennium Tower at 301 Mission Street had already sunk roughly 16 inches. The original engineering report, written before construction, had predicted a maximum lifetime settlement of 4 to 6 inches over the entire lifespan of the building. The tower had blown through that prediction before it even opened to residents in 2009. The Millennium Tower is 645 feet tall. It is the tallest concrete residential building in San Francisco. The construction cost was around $350 million. Total sales generated $750 million. A penthouse unit sold for $13 million in 2016. And underneath all of that, the foundation was a friction pile system driven 60 to 90 feet into compacted sand. The piles never reached bedrock. I want to read you the original prediction one more time because this is the number the entire story turns on. 4 to 6 inches of settlement over the entire life of the building. By 2014, the foundation had dished nearly 14 inches. By the time residents received their letter in 2016, the building was leaning visibly to the northwest. By 2018, you could roll a marble across an apartment floor and watch it pick up speed. I'm going to walk you through what happened next, because the public version of this story and the actual record of what happened are not the same story. The official version is a success. The actual version is more complicated, more expensive, and more honest. This is document number 1. The Millennium Tower file is open. The first thing to understand is who built this building and how. The developer was Mission Street Development, an affiliate of Millennium Partners. The architects were Handel Architects. The structural engineer was DeSimone Consulting Engineers. The geotechnical engineer, the firm responsible for understanding how the building would interact with the soil underneath it, was Treadwell and Rollo. And the construction was done by WebCore. In San Francisco, before 2009, there was no rule that a tall residential tower had to have its foundation sunk all the way to bedrock. The Millennium Tower was approved without an independent peer review of its foundation design. The developer declined to submit to that review because they said it would have delayed construction by years. So the building went up on a friction pile foundation sitting on compressed soil in a city built on landfill in a seismically active zone. The decision to build it that way was a cost decision, a schedule decision, and a regulatory decision. It was not an engineering necessity. The Salesforce Tower next door, built later, went all the way to bedrock. So did every other major tower built in San Francisco after the Millennium Tower's problems became public. Within a year of opening, the building had already sunk more than the original report had predicted it ever would. By 2014, the Homeowners Association was running its own monitoring instruments and watching the foundation dish under the weight of the structure. By 2016, after the city of San Francisco threatened to red tag the building, the developer brought in a firm called Simpson, Gumpertz, and Heger to figure out what to do. Their answer was a fix. The fix would cost $100 million. It would involve driving 18 steel piles 250 feet into the ground, all the way down to bedrock this time, and transferring some of the building's weight off of the failed friction foundation onto these new piles. The lead engineer on the fix was a man named Ronald Hamburger. The plan went forward. And here is where the story gets interesting, because the fix did not go the way they said it would. Construction on the perimeter pile upgrade started in 2020. By August of 2021, residents and engineers noticed something they were not expecting. The building was not stabilizing, it was sinking faster. The very act of digging the foundations for the new piles, drilling and excavating along two sides of the structure, was disturbing the already stressed soil and accelerating the very problem the project was supposed to fix. By the end of 2021, the building had tilted an additional several inches during the construction. By the time the work was paused for an emergency review, the tower was leaning around 29 inches at the northwest corner. I want you to think about that. I personally think this is the part of the story that does not get told. The first attempt to fix the Millennium Tower made the Millennium Tower worse. Construction was halted. The engineers had to redesign the project. The redesigned plan was scaled back, used a different pile driving method, and work resumed in 2022. The official cost was still $100 million, but other sources put the total project cost at $120 million by the time the work was complete. In the summer of 2023, the engineers declared victory. They had transferred 18 million pounds of building weight off the original foundation onto the new bedrock piles. They said the settlement had been arrested and the building had recovered nearly 1 inch of its tilt. The press release used the word succeeded. The trade press wrote about it. The retrofit won an award from the National Council of Structural Engineers Associations as Project of the Year. And that is the version of the story that most people know, if they remember the Millennium Tower at all. Sinking building, fixed by clever engineers, success. Here is the part that is not in the press release. The same engineering team's predictive model, the model used to justify the fix and reassure residents in the city, had forecast up to 4 inches of tilt recovery within the first 6 months of completion. The actual recovery, as of the most recent monitoring data publicly available, was around 1 inch. That is 1/4 of what the model predicted. The lead engineer responded to this discrepancy by saying that tilt recovery was a secondary benefit, not a primary objective. Those words appear in the press record. The primary objective, he said, was just to stop the settlement. And on that narrow goal, by the engineer's own measure, the project succeeded. But there is more. After the fix was complete, monitoring detected something new. The building was now showing signs of dishing in the center of its mat foundation. Dishing means the middle of the foundation is sinking relative to the edges. A geotechnical engineer named Bob Pike, a longtime skeptic of the fix, told NBC Bay Area that this kind of deformation creates a real risk of cracking under the foundation, and that water seeping into those cracks could rust the steel reinforcement. Rusted steel expands. Expanded steel cracks more concrete. He said the damage could be repaired, but it would require a detailed examination of the underside of the foundation, and there is no public record that this examination has been done. The current state of the building, as of mid-2025, is this. It still leans 28 inches at the northwest corner. The lean has improved by about 2 inches since the fix completed total. The original prediction of 4 inches of recovery in 6 months turned into 1 inch of recovery over more than 2 years. The building is no longer in active free-fall settlement, which is a real accomplishment. But the long-term picture is not as settled as the press releases said it was. And then there is the money. The lawsuits over the Millennium Tower have been settling for years. The Homeowners Association sued the developer, the contractor, and the Trans-Bay Joint Powers Authority, which had been doing nearby underground construction the developer blamed for the sinking. Multiple lawsuits and counter-lawsuits eventually arrived at a tentative omnibus settlement. The details of that settlement are not fully public, but the part of it that is public should make every taxpayer in San Francisco pay attention. The city of San Francisco, meaning the people of San Francisco, contributed to the settlement payments. Public money went toward the cost of fixing a private luxury condo tower that should never have been allowed to be built the way it was built. Homeowners in the tower, in addition to whatever they recovered through the lawsuits, were also presented with an unanticipated $6.8 million special assessment to cover repair costs the litigation did not fully address. I personally think the story of the Millennium Tower is not the story most people think it is. The story most people think it is a story about a sinking building that got fixed. The actual story is about a regulatory decision in 2005 to approve a 645-foot residential tower on a friction pile foundation in a seismically active city without an independent peer review in order to save the developer from a delay. Every piece of damage that followed, every lawsuit, every dollar of repair, every inch of tilt, every cracked basement wall traces back to that decision. The fix did not undo it. The fix mitigated the worst of it, partially at considerable expense, with results that fell well short of what was promised, and the building still leans 28 inches. I personally think there is one detail that closes this case file better than any other, and it is this. After the Millennium Tower's problems became public, the city of San Francisco changed its building code. Every high-rise built in the city since 2009 has had to anchor its foundation all the way to bedrock. That is now the rule. Independent geotechnical review is now required for any building over 240 feet. Both of those rules exist because of the Millennium Tower. The building did not just fail. It changed the law of the city it sits in because it failed so badly. That is what I personally think you take away from this story. The Millennium Tower is the reason every tower built next to it for the rest of San Francisco's history has had to be built more carefully. The cost of that lesson was $100 million in repairs, an unknown number of additional millions in legal settlements, public taxpayer dollars in San Francisco, and a 645-foot tower that still leans 28 inches today. This is document 1. This is what is in the file. In the next file, I will walk through the lawsuit that residents of 432 Park Avenue in Manhattan filed against the developer of their building, because the same pattern, the same cracks, and the same question, what did the developer know and when did they know it, are showing up almost 3,000 miles away in another tower nobody thought could fail. If you want to read that file with me when it opens, the way to make sure you do is to subscribe to the construction files. Every collapse has a cost. Every cost has a record. We open the file.